Close your eyes for a moment. Not literally unless you want to, but let your mind wander. Imagine a valley wrapped in mist, where the air smells of wet pine and ancient earth. In the center of that valley stands a monastery of grey stone, so old that its walls seem to have grown there, like the roots of a tree that refuses to die. And inside that monastery, in a small cell with almost no light, lives a monk. His name is Thaddeus. Thaddeus is 83 years old. His eyes are the color of the ocean before a storm blue, deep, with something restless inside them. But what truly defines Thaddeus is not his eyes. It is not his deep voice echoing through the stone corridors. It is not even his wisdom, which monks from all over the world once came to seek. What defines Thaddeus is his apron. It was a dark leather apron, worn by time, with pockets sewn in layers, some beneath others, like stories within stories. And from each pocket, from every fold, keys emerged. Dozens of them, perhaps hundreds. Keys of rusted iron, keys of polished brass. Small keys, like those for secret boxes. Large, heavy keys that seemed to have existed before the monastery itself. Some were tied with red silk thread. Others had small yellowed paper tags with letters that could barely still be read. When Thaddeus walked, the sound was unmistakable, a constant rhythmic clinking, almost musical, but with a weight that could be felt on the shoulders just by looking at him. The younger monks wondered in hushed voices during meals, what are all those keys for? What doors do they open? None of them had the courage to ask until Liang arrived. Liang was 21 and came from a northern village where the rivers freeze in winter. He had short hair, attentive eyes, and a rare quality in someone so young. He was not afraid of questions that hurt. During the first week, he simply observed Thaddeus. He saw him sitting in the garden at dawn, the apron of keys resting on his lap, running his fingers over them as if praying a rosary. He saw him stop halfway down the corridor, eyes closed, holding a particular key with both hands, as though trying to hear something it was whispering. In the second week, Liang approached him. "Master Thaddeus," he said, his voice steady but respectful, "may I ask you something?" The old monk opened one eye, just one. "You already are." Liang smiled, not letting himself be diverted. "These keys, what are they for?" Thaddeus remained silent for a long moment. The wind stirred the trees in the garden. Somewhere a bird sang, and then stopped. "Sit," Thaddeus finally said. Thaddeus began to speak slowly, like someone finding words on the ground and picking them up one by one. "When I was your age, I lived in a large city. I had a love, I had a dream. I had a father who didn't understand me, and a mother who understood too much. Life was one door after another, and I ran through them without stopping to think where they were taking me." He paused. From the deepest pocket of his apron, he pulled out a small bronze key with the shape of a leaf at its tip. This was the key to the apartment where the love of my life and I decided we would live together. One day, when the right moment came, when we had enough money, when I finished my studies, when she finished that project, when... Thaddeus' voice did not tremble, but his fingers did slightly as he held the key. She found another door, someone who didn't wait for the right moment, and the apartment was rented to someone else, and I kept the key. Liang said nothing. There was in Thaddeus' story the taste of an old wound, one that had never fully healed because it had never been exposed to the air. "I kept the key," Thaddeus continued, "because keeping the key meant keeping the possibility, as long as I had the key, that life still existed somewhere. It was my way of refusing to accept that the door had disappeared." Over the following years, Thaddeus began to accumulate them. Not consciously, at least, not at first. It was almost instinctive, like a child who picks up stones on the beach and stuffs them into their pockets without knowing why. A key for the company he never created. A key for the conversation he never had with his father before he died. A key for the book he began writing at 30 and abandoned at 31. A key for the friendship he allowed to fade into neglect. A key for the morning when he had the chance to change his life and chose to stay in bed. Each key was a story. Each story was a weight. And Thaddeus carried all of it not out of masochism, he emphasized, but because letting go of the keys felt, at the time, like letting go of the people and moments they represented. I thought keeping the key was a way of honoring what might have been, he said. Liang tilted his head. And it wasn't? No, it was a way of not having to say goodbye. Keeping the key didn't keep the door standing. It only prevented me from seeing that in front of me there were other doors already open, waiting. Thaddeus arrived at the monastery on a stormy night at the age of 52, his apron already heavy with keys and his heart heavier still. The abbot who received him was a small man with a farmer's hands and a philosopher's eyes. He asked no questions. He simply said, "Rest. Your story arrived before you." During the first months, Thaddeus prayed, worked in the garden, and studied the ancient texts. But at night, when the monastery fell asleep, he would spread the keys across his bed and stare at them in the candlelight. It was his ritual, his way of not forgetting who he had been. One day the abbot entered his room without knocking, as was customary in the monastery, and found Thaddeus like that, surrounded by keys, his eyes fixed on something that did not exist in the room. The abbot sat down on the floor in silence. They remained like that for a long time. Finally, the abbot spoke. "What doors do those keys open?" "None," Thaddeus replied. "The doors no longer exist." "Then what are the keys for?" "They are all that I have left of them." The abbot picked up one of the keys, a large one of black iron, and carried it to the window where the moonlight touched it. "Do you know what I see when I look at this?" Thaddeus waited. "I see a man who spent his entire life collecting proof that the past was real, as if the past needed your permission to have existed." That sentence remained in Thaddeus the way a seed falls into a dry field. At first, nothing visible happens, but something changes inside, invisible, irreversible. In the weeks that followed, Thaddeus began to realize something he had never seen or had never wanted to see. While he sat polishing his old keys, how many new doors had he walked past without opening? How many conversations had he never begun because he was too busy mourning conversations that had already passed? How many dawns had he never truly lived because he was still inhabiting the dusk of a previous life? The keys were not memory. The keys were armor. And armor, no matter how beautiful, prevents you from feeling someone's warmth when they embrace you. Very slowly, Thaddeus began to work on something, not throwing the keys away. That was not it. It was something different. It was learning the difference between honoring the past and being a prisoner of it. Honoring the past is visiting the house where you grew up. Being a prisoner of it is continuing to sleep there when you already have a home of your own. On a spring Sunday, Thaddeus took Liang to the south garden of the monastery, the one the other monks rarely visited because it was uneven, with tall grass and poorly aligned stones. At the center of the garden, there was a strange structure, a series of door frames with no walls, no roof, only old wooden frames planted in the earth, one behind another, like questions without answers. "I built this 30 years ago," Thaddeus said, "when I finally understood." Liang looked at the frames. The morning light passed freely through them. "What did you understand?" "That most of the doors we lose were never locked. We simply didn't push. We waited for someone to come open them for us. or we convinced ourselves we didn't deserve to enter, or we were afraid of what was on the other side. Thaddeus walked slowly through the frames, as if passing through an art gallery. "And the ones that were locked?" Liang asked. "The ones that were truly lost? Those," he stopped, "those deserve a tear, not a lifetime of mourning. They deserve to be remembered with gratitude because they meant something, but they do not deserve that we stop time in their honor." He paused for a long moment, looking at the horizon through the empty frames. "Time does not stop. Only we stop, and we confuse our paralysis with loyalty." Liang stayed at the monastery for 3 years, and during those 3 years, he gradually witnessed a quiet transformation. Thaddeus did not throw the keys away. He did not bury them. He did not burn them in some dramatic ritual under the moonlight. He did something much more difficult. One by one, he removed the keys from the apron. He held them, closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and allowed the story of each one to pass through him, not like a wound, but like a visit. Then he placed the key into a light wooden box he kept under his bed. "You don't hide them," Liang observed one day. "You still keep them." "Yes," Thaddeus said, "but there is an enormous difference between keeping something in an apron and keeping something in a box." Liang waited for the explanation. "When I carried them in the apron, they went everywhere with me, to meals, to prayer, to the garden, to my dreams. They weighed on me with every step. Now they stay here. I go to them when I want, when I choose. They no longer come everywhere with me without my asking." "It's the difference between having memories and being inhabited by them," Liang said almost to himself. Thaddeus looked at him with that smile old people have when they recognize in the young a wisdom they don't yet know they possess. "Exactly." On the morning before Liang left, they sat together in the Garden of Frames, watching the sun rise through the doors without doors. "Master," Liang said, "I have one last question." "I know," Thaddeus replied. "How did you know?" "Because it's the same question I should have asked when I was your age. Go ahead." Liang took a deep breath. "And now? Now that you've let go of the weight of the keys, what did you find on the other side?" Thaddeus remained silent. The sun climbed slowly. Somewhere, a monastery bell rang the hour. "I found this morning, completely, without sharing it with 20 past versions of myself." And then, more quietly, almost as if he were speaking to the garden rather than to the young monk, "I found myself. What remains when I stop being the guardian of what could have been. Now I want you to do something, not tomorrow, now. Think of a key you are carrying. It doesn't have to be made of iron. It could be a conversation you never had, an apology you never made, a project you abandoned halfway through, a person you let go without saying what you feel, a path you didn't take because you were afraid, or because life hadn't reached the right moment yet, or because you thought you didn't deserve it. Do you feel the weight? That weight is real. I'm not minimizing it. Every key you carry represents something that mattered and still matters. It isn't weakness to have them, it's human. But here is the question that took Thaddeus 50 years to learn. While you devote your fingers to the keys of the past, how many open doors are you ignoring right in front of you? The door of forgiveness, which is unlocked, but no one has pushed it yet. The door of a new beginning, which has no lock-only dust, because it's been a long time since anyone passed through. The door of the honest conversation you could have today with someone you love. The door of a dream that did not die, it simply waited, with the patience that only truly important things possess. Those doors do not need keys. They only need you to stop looking down at the pocket full of the past and start looking ahead. Thaddeus died on an autumn morning at the age of 86, sitting in his favorite chair in the Garden of Frames. When the monks entered to keep vigil, they found the light wooden box open beside him. All the keys were there, carefully arranged. And on top of the box, a note in trembling but determined handwriting. These keys belong to whoever wants them, not to open doors that no longer exist, but to remember that each key was once someone's hope, and hope should never be lost, only transformed. The leather apron was hanging on the door of his room, empty, lighter than it had ever been, and from the garden a gentle wind entered, passing through the doorless frames freely, without meeting any obstacles. As it should be, as you can be. There is one thing Thaddeus was never able to do alone: realize that his keys had weight. He needed Liang. He needed the abbot. He needed someone who would sit there in silence, willing to listen. This channel is that place. If this story touched you, and I believe it did, because you made it this far and that doesn't happen by accident, then you already know what to do. Subscribe, not for me, for the version of yourself that deserves to keep receiving these stories. The one that is still discovering what its keys are. The one that right now is looking at a door it hasn't even realized is open. And in the comments, I want to propose a challenge. Write just one word. The first word that came to your mind when I asked, "What is the key you are carrying?" Just one word. You can do it in secret, like someone leaving a folded note in the crack of an ancient stone. No one needs to know what it means, only you do. But the act of writing it, of taking it out of your pocket and placing it in the light, even if only for a second, that is already the beginning of letting it go. Until the next story.